The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my strength in whom I will trust, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. Psalms 18, verse 2. Hey there, welcome back. I am so glad you've joined me today for this rock class video. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the armor of God and see how well you know the armor of God. Now, my first question for you is this, though. Do you remember how many books there are in the New Testament? Think about it for a moment. How many books of the New Testament? That's right. There are 27 books in the New Testament. Now, the New Testament is divided up into 4 parts. Do you remember what those 4 parts are? Let's say them real quick. You have the Gospels, history, epistles, and prophecy. Now, the Apostle Paul wrote the book of Ephesians. Do you remember where the book of Ephesians is found in this list of the divisions of the New Testament? That's right. It is found in the epistles. So the Apostle Paul wrote a letter to the church in Ephesus. And in chapter 6, he tells them to put on the armor of God. And so what we're going to do is we're going to read through verses 14 through 18. And let's notice the different parts of the armor of God. So let's begin. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Stand fast, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench the fiery darts of the wicked one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints." Now I want to see how well you do in filling in the armor of God. Let's read it again. Here we go. Are you ready? "Stand fast, having girded your" what? That's right. "Having girded your waist with truth." Another way of thinking about it is a belt of truth. So if you want to say belt of truth, that is perfectly fine. But let's continue. "Having put on the breastplate of," do you remember? Exactly. The breastplate of righteousness. Okay? "And having shod your feet with the preparation of the," do you remember? Exactly. "The gospel of peace." And basically it means like putting the gospel of peace on your feet like sandals, so that everywhere you go, it goes with you. You're ready to walk the paths of life with the gospel of peace. And then he says, Paul does, "Above all, taking the shield of" what? Do you remember? Exactly. "The shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the..." Do you remember this one? What does the shield of faith help us to quench or to put out, like to extinguish? That's right. "The fiery darts of the wicked one." Have you ever seen a fire and someone pour water on the fire and the fire goes out? Think about maybe when you go camping. Well, that's the idea here, to quench or to put out the fiery darts of the wicked one. And then Paul writes, "And take the helmet of," do you remember what it was? The helmet of, that's right, the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. All right, you're doing great so far. But there's a couple of more I want you to focus on. Paul then says, What are we supposed to do always? You remember? That's right. He says, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit. And then the last one, this one is a bonus one, being what? What's the next word? Do you remember? Being watchful to the end with all perseverance and supplication for the saints. You did a great job. This is the armor of God. Thanks for joining me here on this bench. I decided to sit down for a moment. Now, let's see how well you know the armor of God. What is the first thing that we're supposed to put on? We put it around our waist. Do you remember? Exactly. The belt of truth. Now, after you've put on the belt of truth, what comes next? Do you remember? Exactly. We put on the breastplate of righteousness. So now we have the breastplate of righteousness. And then next, we are supposed to put something on our feet. Do you remember what we're supposed to put on our feet? That's right. The gospel of peace. Good job so far. Now, after we put the gospel of peace on our feet, what do? We then take the shield of what? That's right. We take the shield of faith. And this shield of faith will let us quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. Now what's next? You remember? That's exactly right. We're supposed to take the helmet of salvation. Good job. The helmet of salvation. And then the last thing that we're supposed to take as a soldier of Christ, we put on the armor of God, is the what? You remember? Exactly. The sword of the Spirit. And what is the sword of the Spirit? Exactly. That is the Word of God. Outstanding. But now let me ask you this. After the soldier of Christ has put on the armor of God, there's two important things he needs to do. Do you remember what those two things are? That's right. The first one is he needs to pray always in the Spirit and always be watchful. Outstanding. You know the armor of God. But now here's the more important question. Are you wearing the armor of God? Let me encourage you every day of your life to do your best to be pleasing unto God, to be able to overcome the challenges of the world. And we do this by wearing the armor of God. Thank you so much for joining me today for this study. And I'll plan to see you again on our next Rock Class video. Have a wonderful day.